I talk a lot about sex with my clients because this is crucial for relationships, and being a relationship therapist, it's not just about that physical intimacy, but it's looking at all the ways that we do things that create that connection. One of the biggest pattern interrupters we can have in our life is falling in love. So you're spending as much time as you possibly can together. It's very intentional time. You are saying the most beautiful things to each other, lots of compliments, lots of positive feedback. You're probably doing nice little gestures for each other. Some life stresses come into the relationship and suddenly we're out of the honeymoon period and we're, into real life things. Try and think of the relationship in those early stages, and all the things that you used to do, be just as intentional. If your partner is saying, here's what I'm really needing from you, you have to hear that. Because if you don't hear that, they're going to disconnect from you. They're going to find something else to fulfill that need that they had for connection. Think about it like, I've just met you, where am I taking you? What am I wanting to show you? We don't really think about things in such an intentional way that shows someone that they're important.
Welcome everybody to the Reconnect to Self podcast, the show that helps you ultimately rediscover what brings you joy. My name is Scott. I am your host. I'm also a filmmaker, and I'm here with my wife, Tracey, as always, who is a counsellor, breathwork instructor, certified psychedelic assisted therapist.
We can clarify, you said in the last episode between 15 and 20 years. Yeah. It's 20 years, thank you. It's 15 years almost in private practice, but I've been practicing for 20. Longer than that, yes.
Beautiful. All right, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm well. Before we jump in, let's get to our sponsor, which once again is us. So, how many retreats we got this year?
We've got 2 relationship retreats coming up this year and 2 individual retreats, because we've just had our last one, our individual retreat in May.
Yes, which is amazing. And big shout out to everyone who came along. We'll do a newsletter with some more information about that. And you can find all the details to these retreats at traceyquayle.com. Now, today we are talking about intimacy and connection. Is that what we're going to call it?
Yeah, and you've got a really nervous tone to your voice.
And
why does this make you nervous?
Because I am British and prudish. So we'll navigate it as we go along. I just don't know how much detail we're going to go into. But why did you want to do an episode about this?
Because this is crucial for relationships, and being a relationship therapist, this is stuff I talk about all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not just about sex, although I talk a lot about sex with my clients. So it's part of a relationship is, all of those things that go into creating that connection, for our relationships. And it's not just about that physical intimacy, but it's looking at all the ways that we do things that create that connection in our relationships and in our lives. So I wanted to cover that so that people have a resource to, have some tips of what they can add into their own relationships.
Okay, well, that sounds good. I'm sure lots of people will be, this might be one of our best ever episodes, most popular episodes. Where do you want to start?
Well, I want to start with kind of at the very beginning. So when people first, meet each other and they start dating, and then they start that first, sort of stage of falling in love, that's actually one of the biggest pattern interrupters we can have in our life is falling in love. And what I mean by a pattern interrupter is, and obviously in previous episodes, I always talk about that first 7 years of life and the patterns that we, go into. But by the time we're 35, we are doing 90 to 95% of our habits automatically. So that includes our days, the routines in our days, the thoughts in our days, the patterns and behaviors that we do. They're all coming pretty much automatically. But when we fall in love, that is an amazing pattern interrupter. And so suddenly we're not doing the same routine. Suddenly we're not, seeing our friend on a Wednesday. We're cancelling those plans and, trying to see the person that we're interested in. So we're not having that same predictability and routine that we normally would have. And so now, if we're looking at our relationship, I'm thinking about, when can I see you next and what activities can we do together? I'm looking at all the ways I want to connect with you, and I'm visualizing that, I'm imagining that. So I'm also creating lovely chemicals for myself when I'm doing that. So that's another pattern interrupter. I'm thinking different thoughts. I'm creating different chemistry in my body. So in those beginning months, a honeymoon period can go for 1 month to 36 months, depending on, the relationship. And I would say the amount of stress put on the relationship. Like people could have a relationship be, going lovely, and all of a sudden some life stresses come into the relationship, and suddenly we're out of the honeymoon period and we're, into real life things. That's where someone can have an unexpected pregnancy or, a loss of some kind. And, suddenly all those lovely things we're doing, might not be kind of what's the main focus.
As you were talking then, it reminded me of how sickening we were when we first met and fell in love.
Yeah.
And I guess sickening is not...
Well, it was sickening for everyone else. It wasn't sickening for us, but our friends. And funny enough, one of my clients was recently talking about this the other day when we were talking about love languages, and she said anything that puts us back in our bubble, and that was what we called our
bubble land.
Bubble land, because even our friends would mock us and say, "Oh, you two, you're just off in bubble land."
Yeah,
and that was just us so content.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lovely time.
Yeah, but that's obviously in that beginning falling in love phase, and we're getting to know each other and doing lots of lovely things together. And that's why you feel so connected, because, going back to the episode of the love languages, most of those love languages would have been met for most people in the beginning stage of their relationship. So you're spending as much time as you possibly can together. It's very intentional time. You're really making sure that that's being curated and set aside that time. You are saying the most beautiful things to each other, lots of compliments, lots of positive feedback. You're probably doing nice little gestures for each other, like making dinner for each other, or, making the bed or changing the sheets or doing something. I remember doing your washing early on.
Yes.
You hated doing your washing, and I've kept it ever since.
I think I just never did washing, and then it would pile up and pile up and pile up, and I'd get to this point where okay, I have to do washing.
And then you would have it on clothes dryers.
Well, I lived in an apartment. I didn't actually have a clothesline.
That would be your wardrobe. You just go and get it off the clothes horse.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I didn't like ironing, and I didn't like folding or putting away clothes.
So it became a love language that I would do for you.
Yes.
That then turned into a task that I do, and not a love language.
I guess my spare room is it Chinese laundry?
Yeah.
That's not racist to say that. I don't think so.
I think it's a saying.
Yeah, it's a saying. My spare room was essentially my laundry area.
Yeah. So in those beginning stages, we're probably also very tactile. Like we're touching each other a lot. We're looking each other's eyes. We're making out at every opportunity. And the reason I'm pointing this stuff out is that all builds chemistry. So not only are you enjoying the interactions themselves, but that's actually creating that physiological change in your body as you're experiencing those nice emotions and things. And if you're making out with someone, that is releasing chemistry in your body. Yeah. And so maybe in that moment, you're not going to go and go to the bedroom straight off the back of a make-out session because you've got to go to work or you've got to go to whatever your next thing is. But that chemistry still sort of stays high. So by the time that you do actually go and want to be intimate, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Because you've got that chemistry already sort of sitting there from all those interactions, all those love languages that are being met and being offered and being received. Like all of that's good chemistry.
And making out would probably be one of those things that dies away quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Like it seems, I have to admit, it seems a strange thing to do now as a 47-year-old to think, let's just make out.
And it can. The reason why that can also be a little bit unusual is because people can often see that as being a green light. Like if someone comes up and makes out with their partner in the kitchen, one of those partners might be thinking, great, we're on here.
Yes.
And so
I can have a guess which partner that would be in a standard traditional male-female relationship.
Yeah. Depending on the couple, that would usually be the male, but not always.
99%, you'd imagine. 95%.
Well, to be honest, it actually depends on their age and things, because there's different points where someone's libido could be higher and lower, but it's more about we're not doing those things anymore. So all of the things that we do in the beginning of a relationship that are very intentional, that are very considered, all of a sudden we're back to the routine of life, and the hustle and bustle of whatever your life, has in it. So if you're not intentionally doing these things to create connection or create opportunities to communicate effectively, then you're almost going to move into more of a friendship roommate kind of a relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're more interested in getting the tasks done, getting the house running effectively, making sure everything's covered for the kids, and your relationship now isn't getting any attention.
I think that just gave me, I don't know if PTSD is the word, but I remember maybe when the kids were babies and you just have zero time.
Or energy.
That would be something you would say, and it would be a real insult. We're roommates.
Yeah.
And I would take that quite personally. Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's because you're just getting all those things done. So you might function well as a team, but you're not putting in that intentional time and effort with each other. So you're not feeling very important.
Yeah.
Or it's a different kind of connection. Like it is moving into more of that friendship, which obviously we want a strong foundation of friendship in any relationship, but we don't want it to feel like you're treating me the same as what you would, Nikki, who we had in the last podcast.
Yeah.
You want to feel like with your partner, there's something more special in your relationship, that they share more with you than anybody else, because you want to feel, that level of importance and connection with that person.
Yeah. You've given me some notes to go through, and the first one on there is like everyday things that you could do. Because I imagine this episode is probably going to resonate with a lot of people. You can probably confirm that by how many of these conversations you have in.
So many.
Yeah. So it's a common issue.
Yeah. Oh, it's really common. Because again, our lives are so busy, we're not really prioritising, our relationship the same way that we would have in the beginning. So creating some everyday, sort of habits and routines can be really helpful to kind of, again, because we come from our habits, we need to put that in there as a habit so that we create those times together. I often give this example to my couples when I'm talking about communication. I had this couple years and years ago, and they had really poor communication. And I said to them, was there ever a time in your relationship that, you did communicate better than what you currently are? And they had to think about it, and they said, we used to be smokers. And so we used to sit outside, after dinner every single night, and we'd have a cigarette and a cup of coffee, and we would just talk. And so because there was no pressures on them, they weren't being interrupted by the kids, because that smoke literally kept a smoke screen around them and the kids didn't want to go near them. So this was really intentional time they got to spend together. They were both in the same mood, so they were, not in the middle of something while they're having these conversations. So they were just able to, talk about their week and talk about what was coming up, and even sort of plan and dream a little bit, because they were having these kind of chunks of time together every night. Granted, it was to do with their addiction, but it was being created for them, and that's actually what was the change. Like when they gave up cigarettes, they gave up that time together. They didn't think about putting that somewhere else, and so they lost that connection in that way. And so when I saw them, they were communicating so poorly that one would be cooking dinner and the other one's trying to talk to them, but because they weren't expecting them to be having a conversation in that moment, they're not hearing them, and one's repeating it 3 times over, and then they're getting frustrated because they're not being heard. So these patterns start to emerge that actually weren't there before, when they had that time together.
Yeah.
Another one could be going and walking the dog after you finish work. Anything that we're doing as a ritual, as a routine, we can rely on that. So, maybe if I was busier in the day and I think, oh gosh, I need to speak to Scott about whatever, if we have a routine of taking the dog for a walk, I can know that that's when I can talk to you about that.
Yeah. We have one now out where we sit out the front in the morning.
Yeah.
The front yard that I renovated. We've got a little deck out there and 2 seats, and quite often I'll say, do you want to have a cup of tea out the front before you take the kids to school? And we usually can squeeze 20 minutes.
Yeah, usually about 20 minutes. I'll try and hustle to try and get ready in time. But yeah, we can usually create that now that the kids are older and don't need me as much with their morning routines. But yeah, it's just finding those little moments of being able to come together. And that leads me into my next point, which is talking about a concept called positive sentiment override and negative sentiment override.
Very, very, very familiar with this.
I think all the kids are too. Like, it's so funny that that's such a random term, but my kids would know exactly what positive sentiment override means.
Because you tell everyone.
I do tell everyone.
When I say that, it's not in a good positive way. It's in a you're getting told off kind of a way.
Yeah, because I'm in negative sentiment override with you.
Correct.
I'll give an example of that actually, because while we talk about this on our relationship retreat, because we're talking about it in a relationship, it was off the back of one of our retreats. I came home and Tommy was complaining. I might have said this in a previous episode actually, but he was complaining that you were sexist. And I was like, why? Why do you think Dad's sexist? And he said, well, Aliana did blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what it was. And if I had done that, Dad would have reacted, whatever way. But because she did it, he didn't react that way.
Yeah.
And I was almost buying into it because I thought, that does sound a bit unfair, and that does sound likely in terms of what you would have responded if he did that particular thing. But because I'd just come off the back of the relationship retreat and we'd been talking about this for the couple of days, it popped into my head and I went, Tommy, this is because Dad's probably in negative sentiment override with you, which actually what that means is we've had 5 or more negative interactions, or just interactions that haven't gone as well as you would have liked. So it doesn't mean that it's a fight or a screaming match or a whatever, but it could just be, which is what I'm about to describe with Tommy, it could just be when we ask him to do something and he says, why can't Ali do it?
Yeah.
Or I'll do it later.
I mean, you could list off a million things that
he would say.
He was,
yeah. So because of that, those interactions aren't, from our perspective, going very well. From his perspective, that's going great. He's not doing the things that he's being asked to do. So he's not annoyed with us. So he's still in lovely positive sentiment override with us.
Yeah.
Because he's not having anything not go his way.
Yeah.
Or not go well for him. Yeah. So.
Or maybe give some examples of a couple style relationship.
So it could be that, you walked in the room, your husband didn't even look up from his phone.
Yeah.
Or he said hi but didn't smile. And maybe for you that felt not very warm. It could be they call across the house at you.
Yeah.
Compared to coming and finding you. It could just be that the way that they had the tone in their voice as they were answering you. So these aren't huge things, but it's going to add up and add up and add up. And then when they do one thing nice, maybe they decide to make you a cup of tea, but you've had, 5 interactions that haven't felt so great, because people not feeling heard can be something in there, but it doesn't even have to be as big as that. It could just be, you came home and you didn't straight away come and say hi to me.
But what might be also the case, which I think has probably happened with us, is you've had an argument, a decent size argument, maybe you've made up, and then something like that happens where you're looking at me like you don't.
I'm just trying to understand what
agree.
you're saying. No.
Well, let's say we have a big argument about something, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not feeling great about you.
Yeah.
But we sort of got over it.
Yeah.
Just so that we can get on with our day.
Yeah.
Then if you did something like shout across the house at me, I'm probably still in negative over.
Oh, you're 100% still in negative
because
sentiment
of the
override.
argument.
Yeah.
So the seemingly small thing of shouting through the house at me, I would be way more annoyed than normal because I'm in the negative sentiment override.
Yes.
Yeah.
So going back to Tommy and Ali as the examples, because your interactions with him don't always go so well from your perspective, then when he does do one thing nice, like maybe he says, come and watch soccer with you, you're kind of like, it's great, but I'm still in that negative sentiment override. Yeah. Whereas if we look at Aliana, around that time especially, I remember her making you cups of tea, and she would always ask you how your day was, and she's generally a pretty sweet kid. Yeah. So she would do these nice gestures, or those interactions would go well. So when she did do the one thing that stuffed up that Tommy thought she should have had a good consequence about, you weren't that bothered about giving it to her because you were in that positive sentiment override. Which is the same if we think about a relationship. If I've had a great day with you and, we've had lots of nice time, then all of a sudden, you do something, you leave your shoes and nearly trip over them, I'm not going to worry about that.
Yeah.
Because it's that 5-to-1 ratio. So when we're looking at couples doing really, really well, we also really want that to be above 5. They say we reference a lot of our research in the relationship retreat around the Gottman Institute. They're world leaders in the relationship counselling space. And they say that super couples kind of have a 20-to-1 ratio. So we want to be looking for opportunities to have those nice interactions.
Is that a phrase, a super couple?
Sounds
like they've made up that phrase.
Maybe. Well, that's just the ones that are doing really well.
Yeah.
Are kind of
I guess you've
having
got to name
those.
it something. Why not be super couples?
But it's just about those interactions being at a higher ratio.
Yeah.
Versus the negative ones coming through. Yeah. So it can be really helpful for people to understand that concept of that 5-to-1 ratio with any relationship, not just romantic relationships, but even with the kids. Like the example we just gave about Tommy. So, but in a romantic relationship, it could be making sure that we're intentionally trying to curate those. That 5-to-1 or 5 above, really. And that's where your love languages come in. That's where, you can plan things like your date nights and things. But what we also are wanting to look for is how are we adding energy into our relationships? because so much of our lives are on those autopilots and, not much fresh energy is kind of coming in, that's where relationships can feel a bit stale and a bit, stuck.
Yes.
We're having the same conversations, we're recycling the same date ideas, we're going to the same restaurants, which could be okay if it's your favourite and you're doing it for special occasions. But if you're just going to the local Chinese because it's just down the road and that's what you do, you're not adding anything fresh and stimulating into the relationship. But
I would imagine there's a ton of people who don't even go on dates.
Oh, yeah. They will just get into the routine of their life and then they wouldn't even have the energy for the relationship.
Yeah.
So they're running kids to sports, or they're working late at night, from their office job, or finishing up things at home. So they don't really have the energy sometimes, to want to put these things in place.
Yeah.
So that's where you've got to make it easy for yourselves that dates don't have to be outside the house. Okay. They can be inside the house.
I like the sound of that.
But it's just intentionality. So think about us during, kind of COVID times where we couldn't really go out, and lucky us in Perth didn't have much of that, but there still was a period of time. We utilised different spaces in our house. You would set up the chairs in a different spot in our backyard or in the front yard, and even just that sitting in a different area kind of freshened it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it could be sitting in a different room that you would normally sit in. It could be playing a game that night or having a special dessert that night that is a bit more intentional.
Yeah.
But again, anything that's showing, I was considering you today, or I was considering the relationship today.
I think the key word there is intentional.
Yeah.
And
you know what? It's funny. Some of the complaints that I hear from people when they think their partner is jealous about things, when I check into a little bit more, it won't be about jealousy in terms of a romantic kind of way that someone's jealous. It'll be they're jealous of that person's time or energy going into someone else. So a couple of examples of that is I've had many a wife, be upset with their partner, when they've turned around and said, oh, hey, can I go out with the boys on a Friday night? Or is it okay if I do this with the boys or whatever? And they'll not be upset about the actual going out, but they'll be upset with you can create that with your friends. You can organise that for your friends to go out, but you don't ever think about, doing something with me or organising something for the family.
Yeah.
So that's where some of that resentment can come in, that they're not feeling considered and important in that planning.
So how do people navigate that? Because I think that one would resonate with almost everybody. Guys need a little bit of guy time.
That's fine. So that's where, if you can have routines in place where you go, okay, what's our agreement? And these are just examples. This does not need to be your timings, but it could go, how about we organise a date in the house once a week and a date out the house, kind of once a fortnight. So you're kind of always having something happening weekly. You could take turns of who's organising that. So it could be, I'm going to organise this time of doing it in the house, and you're going to do the outside the house date organising, and then we're going to flip it. And you're going to do the in-house one next time, and I'll do the out-the-house one. But what you could also do, I often suggest to clients that try and create, you could do this as a date even, go out for a coffee or go to the beach, do whatever, but I will let you sit there on your phones for this one. Sit there and try and curate a list that you would both like to do those activities. So this is where we're trying to intentionally add more of that energy. So we could sit down and go, what would we love to do? We're coming into winter here in Perth. What would we love to do this winter? And we could go, okay, I want to go into the Perth Hills and have a Devonshire tea, or I want us to go out for, a roast night or whatever it might be. But you could just...
Not something you would ever do.
No, I've never gone out for a roast night.
I can't believe you used that as the example.
Someone else might like to do that. Me, you've lost me on both of those things.
Yeah.
So I think that it's just trying to create that list that both of you are happy with every activity on that list. It's got to have a variety of time, so everything from sort of, half an hour together right through to a whole day. And then that way, if you can curate a list of, say, 20 things on there, and while that seems a lot, this is something you could add to. This is something that when you're talking to your friend and they mention a new restaurant, you're like, oh, let me check with Scott if he likes that restaurant. Let's put it on the list.
Yeah.
So it's just things that you might like to try or to do, or that's going to create something different for the relationship. And again, think back to the beginning of your relationship. We're often being so thoughtful in what we're planning for each other. You want to impress your partner.
Yeah.
And then we get to the point, when we're married however long, where you go, do you want to go out tonight? Yeah, sure. Where do you want to go? I don't know, you choose. Oh. Like, it's no energy in it. It's such a kind of, yeah, that's fine. Yep. And when I give that example to my clients, they always laugh because they know. They know that that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that. I'm laughing because this is really hitting home, and I guess I'll just be pretty authentic. I am not good at this. We have had many arguments about how bad I am at doing this. I'm maybe a little bit better now, but talk to that. Like, you've been a partner with a husband who... Oh, man,
I'm glad you're saying this, because sometimes I'll say to my clients, I get it. My husband is like that, and I think they think I'm just being kind.
I am
trying to connect to them. No, I have one of those too. So it's about creating those reminders for yourself, like if you have that routine of going, this is my turn to organise it, this is your turn to organise it, what are you putting in place to make sure that that's going to happen? Because that's not my responsibility. If we've agreed on you're organising that date night, that's why I'm trying to make it easy for people. Have the list already curated.
Yeah.
You've already done that for a date. You've already got that list sitting there. All you need to do is scan your eyes over that list and see if something jumps out at you. But you know that I'm going to be approving of anything on that list because I've created that with you.
Yeah.
And if you're setting aside that time during the week, whether it's to do the dog walk or just to have that catch up, like us in the mornings before we take the kids to school, that's you're setting it up for the weekend, or when are we doing these things? So you could flag that with me and say, hey, I was thinking we could go and do an escape room, or we could go and do whatever it might be. And I can let you know whether that's something that I think would be good, or can we choose again?
And they don't always have to be like that, because we don't do that many of
No,
those
we
types of
don't at
things.
all, no.
The thing that has worked for us, and I think part of it is because we both work from home. Well, you have an office, but you're home a lot. Is if we're both home, especially around lunchtime, we can go and have a lunch together, or a brunch, or a breakfast, spur of the moment. And I feel like that's worked reasonably well, because we don't really go to the movies, or we don't even really like going out for dinner.
No, we're lunch or brunch. Yeah.
But I think we do enough of those things these days. You probably like a little bit more, I'm guessing, but we do enough of those these days where it's just the two of us, and obviously it helps with the kids being older, that we do stay connected. And I'm speaking in this tone because I'm not.
He's nervous.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is you've worked from home for a long time, and that was always my gripe with you. You don't offer to do that.
I was so obsessed with working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't want to take that time out, but I would be like, how come you can go out for lunch with this person or that person?
Because I would view it as networking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
view it as networking with me.
Well, in many ways I have.
Yeah, but it's about put it on your radar. It's because it wasn't on your radar. Yeah. And so if your partner is saying, here's what I'm really needing from you, you have to hear that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't hear that, they're going to disconnect from you, and they're going to sort themselves out. They're going to find something else to fulfill that need that they had for connection. And that might be turning their back to you as they connect more with a friend, or they go and find a hobby that gives them some sort of nice feeling. But if they're not getting it from you, they're not going to move towards you, so that's where that disconnect can happen.
Great.
So we want the list with lots of variety. And again, that variety could just be every burger place in Perth you want to visit. I don't care what it is.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but it's going, that's our thing. Some people like whatever it might. If you like French food, look at all the French restaurants and chip away this year at going and, visiting them all. But it's not a right or wrong. It's just what resonates for you guys.
Yeah.
I had one client where she wrote me a big long list, and she said, you can get all your clients to do this all the time and keep you up to date with all the stuff in Perth. So that's a great idea. Because she had things on her list like Fremantle prison tours, sculptures by the sea in Cottesloe, like lots of seasonal stuff, as well as stuff that you don't even think about anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you love a Scarborough market, something like that.
Yes.
Outdoor marketplaces.
A farmer's market,
all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just doing something different, getting outside, your comfort zone and mixing it up a little bit. And again, think about it like, I've just met you. Where am I taking you?
Yeah.
What am I wanting to show you? I think that, again, we don't really think about things in such an intentional way that shows someone that they're important. I remember having a conversation with one of my clients where she just started dating someone on Tinder. This is back when Tinder first started. And I said, where are you going to go for your first date? And she said, just to the local such and such near his house. And I said, oh, okay, why? Has it got like an amazing Parmigiana or has it got like a... And she said, oh, no, I think it's just close to his house. And I thought, if that's where you're starting,
Yes.
that's just convenient, that's not a great start to a relationship.
Yeah.
Like you want that person to be... if that's a dive bar, that's fine if I'm taking you there for a reason. Not just because, that'll do.
Yeah.
Like... No one wants to feel like that. So put some effort into your relationship so your partner doesn't feel like that'll do.
Now, I haven't run the analytics or stats on this, but I'm assuming probably the majority of my listeners are female. So, and another sweeping generalization, our relationship is probably the common one where it's the guy maybe letting the team down a little bit.
Yeah.
But assuming the guy is not listening to this podcast, what can the female in the relationship do?
Still suggest the same things. You could still suggest going out for a coffee and creating the list and then creating the agreements around wanting to create this intentional time together. And what does that look like? So is it the dog walking? Is it the setting up a time that you're sitting together? And because you need to communicate as a couple regardless. So you're communicating about kids or household items or things coming up. You have to have that. But we call that transactional conversations. That's not deep, rich conversations. That's just transactional. So we need to find a place for those and we need to find a place for those more enriching conversations.
Yeah, which are amazing. And even us... a lot of our conversations would be transactional.
Well, it can be. We talk a lot about spiritual stuff and about things that I might have heard or you might have heard.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, okay.
Probably more so now we would have better conversations than back when the kids were young.
I've thought about this a couple of weeks ago. This podcast is actually a really good way for us to bond and connect because this is as deep as we go, other than when we go to Airbnbs and whatever. And have a whole weekend together.
So I should be using this as a real directional tool for you. I would like you to blah, blah, blah.
Just a fly on the wall, documentary style. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for the female, set up those conversations. And you want to look at your partner's love languages. Like it's not just about, meeting that female's needs. It's also talking to the male about, what are the things that I could be doing for you that would make you want to do the date nights or want to do the chats and the walking and whatever else. Like what are they missing? So make sure that you're knowing exactly how to care for them.
So for people who haven't listened to every single episode, there is one, which I think was one of our early ones. So I'm going to guess episode 4 was about love languages. 4 or 5.
So that's when, again, we're going back through time, that quality time together, touching, so you're all over each other, that talking, that positive feedback. For us, we used to talk for hours and hours during the night, and morning, Scott and Tracey would be mad at us for keeping them up all night. There's tasks, so you're doing nice, things for each other, gestures for each other, and tokens. You might buy each other nice, things like making sure that you've got, the products in the house that your partner likes, if you're dating.
Is it the 5 T's?
Well, we call it the 5 T's.
Yeah, well.
You came
up with that?
So you can go back.
Did a good job remembering that.
You can go back through and have a look at your love languages. And then we want to make sure that we are adding chemistry in as well, because we can have connection in terms of, I feel comfortable with you. I feel like you know what's going on in my world. Going back to one of the points I didn't finish was about that boys' night and the intentionality behind booking something in for the family or for the couple, that they feel considered. But it's also, I've had a person once before saying that they were jealous that their partner had the neighbour come in. And while someone might think, it's because maybe they think they're flirting or something's inappropriate going on, what she actually was jealous about was that they were having an interesting conversation and that he'd offered her a drink. And that is so basic. Like, this is your husband and you're being jealous that he's offered someone a drink and had a good conversation.
Well, I can relate.
That tells me what's lacking in that marriage.
I can relate to that because one of your pet peeves is if I forget to offer you a drink.
Yeah, not feel considered.
Yes, that's a big one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to feel like you're important to that person, and you want to feel like you also know things about them and they know things about you that others might not. Or others might know of it, but perhaps if you've shared something really personal, really, deep to you with somebody else prior to telling your partner, like if I got I wait for myself, can't get a promotion, but if I had some really good news and I get told 5 people and then you hear it in passing in a conversation and you go, what's that? What happened?
Oh yeah, that would be tough.
And
to
that
take.
does happen to people.
Yeah.
You know, and there can be lots of different reasons for that, but it doesn't make people feel very important and very, very special to the other person.
Yeah.
Whereas you think about, you know, in the beginning of a relationship where that's the person you want to speak to all the time, that's who you would be so excited to share that news with, or you want to go to them with that deeper, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's all connection. That's all intimacy.
I think that almost happened with, I think I nearly forgot to tell you that my film is going to be on SBS finally.
Who did you tell first?
I can't remember, but I think I might have told someone first, and then it was like, I better tell Tracey.
All of a sudden there's a screening and there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do want to watch my film, The Grey Line is on, I think, NITV, which is part of SBS, 2nd of June, 9 p.m.
Well, that's good. You finally got a screening time.
Finally.
Yeah. So it's that. It's making sure that your partner knows things about you kind of first, or, you know, as soon as you kind of can create that space to share that with them, that makes them feel important. And also making sure that you're hearing your partner. If someone's opening up to you and telling you something, you know, really private, personal, sensitive, whatever, how are you responding? Because that creates intimacy too. If someone doesn't look up from their phone when you're trying to tell them something, you know, to start with, they don't feel very close to you.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't do that at the beginning of a relationship. So my other tip is try and think of the relationship in those early stages, and all the things that you used to do, be just as intentional. What's one of the things I say to you if we're going out with friends or even with family and things, but I want you to be more intentional to me? What do I tell you?
Pretend we're newly dating.
That's exactly my words.
You've drilled it into me.
I say it to him all the time. So the reason I say that to Scott is because he doesn't do it, by the way, but I'm wanting him to be more intentional in how he treats me. So when we first got together, you know, we were, again, sickening, but you would hold my hand across the table. That's how intentional you were.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
That was Bubble Land times.
Oh, look, that was the height of Bubble Land.
Yeah.
But while I don't need it to be across the table, you're holding my hand, you putting your hand on my leg, or you giving my hand a little squeeze as you walk past, or anything like that, makes me feel thought of, cared about, noticed.
Yeah.
So when you're in a big group of people, those little actions can make someone feel really seen.
Yeah.
And if you were newly dating, you probably would do those things. If you took your girlfriend, boyfriend, you know, to a big group of people that you know quite well, or maybe both of you do, but maybe if it's one-sided, you would make sure they're comfortable. You would make sure they have a drink. You'd make sure they've got someone to talk to, or you actually wouldn't want to leave their side because you're so obsessed with them.
Yeah.
You are definitely not obsessed with me now.
But the tip I'll give is, because, you know, some of these things don't come naturally to me. I guess they did when we were first dating, but
that's that pattern override.
Yeah. So,
You're being present. That's what you're doing. You were being so present to me, you overrode your normal patterns and habits,
Yes.
which is why my tip to you is pretend we're newly dating
Yes.
to override your patterns and your habits.
It's very hard to pretend you're newly dating, though. So I just take that as a instruction to give you more focus than...
Maybe that's why you don't get it. Because, okay, let me give you why I came up with that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really realise I was doing this consciously for quite a while, but when I would fall asleep at night, I would often try and think of nice thoughts to drift off to sleep with. So one of the ones I came up with was thinking about when I first met Scott, and I remember us being on his couch and I was staring at him. I'm sure he's just watching TV, but I remember just staring at him until he kind of felt me staring at him. But prior to that, I was thinking how handsome he was, or how nice that feeling was that I had in my body at the time. But it was all those loving feelings that in that moment of me remembering, you know, that memory, I'm recreating that chemistry for me. So I'm literally creating the same chemistry in my body.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Like, I am giving myself a lovely way to go to sleep, but I'm thinking of you in such a beautiful way. That's also adding to my positive sentiment override, and you're doing nothing. Like, that's just me creating that for me. So the same way that if you're imagining this is our first date or second date or whatever, it's just you creating for yourself, wow, doesn't she look beautiful? Or I'm so proud of having her here. Like, it's you creating those thoughts that then create the chemistry for you. We are our own chemists.
If anyone wants an insight into our relationship, you just got it, because this is how Tracey talks to me, don't you?
What do you mean?
The way that you explain that to me is absolutely a conversation we would have off mic. Like, in our everyday life, you would say those exact things to me because you educate me. And so it's not, this episode is not triggering me, but it's a more difficult one for me to navigate than normal, because I feel like even though I'm not in trouble,
You're in the hot seat.
I feel like I am in trouble.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly who you are and how you are by now. It's not.
Yeah, but a little peek behind the curtain there, people. That's so maybe the other tip. I don't know if this is a tip. Maybe not everyone has that same dynamic as we do, but you do. I would not say gently push. I would say actively guide me in directions that you want me, the way you want me to act, and I get it, because it makes our relationship better. Mm-hmm. So it's not like...
Well, what I'm doing is I'm only ever asking for what I'm giving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So I'm not expecting Scott to jump through hoops and to, and as much as I'm saying, pretend to be on the first date. That's just me wanting him intentional. That's not me wanting him to do anything hugely above and beyond, in a crazy way. It's just kind of going, make me feel important. Make me feel like you've come to this gathering, but I'm still on your radar. I'm still in your mind. And lots of people can get to the stage in their relationships where they go to a party or a gathering and they don't even see their partner for 6 hours.
Yeah.
That's really common.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, if that works in your relationship, fine. But for lots of people, that might not.
Yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't work every time. Yeah. So I think it's finding those moments to show your partner that they matter to you and that they're important. And the funny thing is, if they weren't in your life, you'd want to do all those things. And I see that all the time, which is why I'm trying to really ram it down people's throats, that these little baby steps, these tiny little things, it's not a big deal that you smiled when I walked in the room, or that you put a cross on the end of your text message, or you said babe at the end of your sentence and then softened the sentence. Like, these are all just little things that you can do to make your partner feel really cared about.
Yeah. Yep. I very much agree.
Yeah.
Now, you did the link before into, I think it's creating... Chemistry.
Yeah.
But that's my job. I do the links. Otherwise, what's the point of me being here?
Just so you can get told off for the things you're not doing.
But you did actually a very seamless job. So talk to me about creating chemistry.
So we want to add that energy in, and we want to add that chemistry. So in the beginning, when we're thinking about our partner, that's creating chemistry. When I'm thinking, I'm going to see you later, or what should I wear? Like, that's all creating chemistry. And when I'm even considering, this is in the beginning, considering my outfit choice, and I don't know if everyone else is as vain as what I would be, but I might be like, oh, he's really seen me in that. So I would want to be, wearing something different, or I'd wanting to be making sure that, you're presenting yourself in a way that you feel confident and you feel good in your own skin. So I think that's a very intentional way of wanting to show up in the relationship, and not just like in my tracky dacks and, my Ugg boots, although you can move into those stages and there's times and places for those. When you're very first dating, you're probably wanting everybody to see you in a certain light. And again, it doesn't have to be that you're putting on airs and graces and things like that and masks, but it's about going, I want to feel attractive here and I want to be attractive here. So, we're doing things like we're doing our hair, we're putting on perfume and aftershave. For females, it could be, matching our underwear. And even if we're newly dating, we're not going to go to the point of having sex with that person on that night. That act of you putting on the matching underwear is just for you. It's for you to have that confidence of feeling really good. I often suggest to females, doing something like that. But for guys, it could be match your boxer shorts to your socks. Whatever's going to give you that little confidence boost to feel like, yeah, I've got this. Or if you're the person that your wife always buys your clothes, you're a little bit in that category. A little bit, or I go with you.
100% in that category.
Yeah. So it could be, you've gone to the shops and someone else has helped you choose something. So when you come to that date, you're wearing something different. Another suggestion I often give to people to create chemistry is meet at a restaurant. So I know that that's a pain in the ass and that's inconvenient if you're coming from the same house. But if you were going to meet on a Friday night where you're both coming from work, if you met at a restaurant, you've got that anticipation of, oh, I wonder what he's going to think of my new outfit, or wonder what she's going to think of my new shirt. You've got the anticipation of waiting for them to come, imagining what the night's going to be like. Like, it gives a little bit of those chemistry, or those the feelings that you would have had in the very beginning, compared to, you ready to go? Yeah. Okay, let's go. Like, that's just, it's not the same.
Yes.
You know, or if you got ready separately, you know, like you're not in the bedroom at the same time getting ready, and that way one person could be thinking, I wonder what he's going to think when he sees me all done up, because he normally sees me in the tracky ducks and the whatever.
Yep.
Like, you want to have that good impression. You don't want to just be like halfway getting ready and they're just seeing you getting ready throughout the whole process. You want that wow factor at the end where you can get that nice feeling, the same way that when it came to the date in the beginning of the relationship where the partner would have said, wow, you look amazing, or, you know, you're getting that. I have lots of clients that tell me that their partners won't say nice things like that.
Really?
Won't comment on their outfit, won't comment on how nice they look.
Oh, I feel like that's one of the easy ones. Like, and you always do look amazing.
Thank you.
But I think that's a no-brainer. Just say it.
Yeah, and they don't. So when we're, you know, giving nice feedback, when we're being more intentional with these dates, that's creating that connection. So it means that on those dates you could be a little bit more flirty because you're feeling good in your own skin. You know, you've got a little bit more energy between the two of you because you did have that anticipation of what are they going to look like, or, you know, how's this night going to be. And then when you first start dating, people often feel like when they're married, you don't want to schedule in sex, you don't want to plan it and have it be so prescribed. But when you were dating, you were kind of doing that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you're not always necessarily having it be that you had sex every time you went on a date, but the energy was certainly there. You know, the intention around what you were wearing, how you wanted to be seen, how you wanted to feel in your own skin. Like, you're doing all the lovely practices that would make you ready for if you wanted to have sex at night.
Yeah.
But again, now sometimes, again, I've had a partner, you know, comment that he saw his wife dressed up beautifully to go out with her friends, and he goes, I never get to see her like that. He goes, when we hang out, we're just on the couch and we don't really go out very much. So he was really attracted to her, seeing her all done up and, you know, knowing she's going to have a good night. She had a good energy about her, but that's not what he gets. Yes. He gets the tired partner at the end of the day that just wants to switch off and read her book or put her headphones on, and he's not getting that lovely energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of those things can really contribute to whether you're going to have a good sex life or not.
Do you want to go into the next phase?
Yeah. So, which is the intimacy, like in terms of the sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my tip for creating good connection around intimacy is start early. Don't make your run to the bedroom happen at the last hour before bed. I'm looking at you, Scott Quayle.
This is so tricky, this episode. My God. This is a mistake that I have made many times and learned my lesson. And if we get to that stage, I don't even bother.
Yes. So it's important that that chemistry is kind of happening earlier than when you're wanting to be intimate in the bedroom, because that person needs to have felt considered and important. And again, maybe a little bit of that flirting is sort of happening.
So I can probably talk to this one. So for the, again, making sweeping generalizations, but for the guys listening, the way this works is, can I say weekends are probably, because just because you have more time on a weekend, you're probably going to be seeing each other more during the day. Start early, start flirting early in the day, and that doesn't have to be a make-out session. It can just be a little touch, a little kiss on the neck, a comment, whatever it is. But I've learned from experience, you can't just rock up on a Saturday night at 9:30 and go,
tap, tap, tap.
Yeah. It doesn't work. And I would even guess if it does work, it's not going to be as good as if you had put the legwork in and built the chemistry during the day, because I guess that is a little bit more like what it was like when you were dating.
Yes. But you know what? It's not just the male's responsibility for this, because while the male might be the one that's more wanting the sex in certain relationships, it's not always the case. It could also be that the guy needs more of that chemistry and more of that, you know, interest. If that girl's not doing anything to create that chemistry for herself, she's not going to be interested in sex whenever it's, you know, coming about, like later in the day or the night or whenever it is. Like, they might have to do some things to get themselves in that mindset. So the same way that, you know, I was intentionally thinking about you when I first met you and getting myself those lovely feelings, people can do that again, thinking about the sex you had in the beginning of the relationship. Or you could watch a movie that's got a cool love scene in it that, you know, you find, you know, really lovely. Just for just being for females,
I just had some, I won't even say the jokes. But some jokes popped into my head of some movie titles that I could reel off. That would be funny in this situation, but I won't.
Okay. Well, if they were watching a movie, for females, it doesn't have to be that it's like pornography.
Yes.
It could be a love story that ends in a beautiful lovemaking session. That could be what gets them off. So that gets their chemistry going. It could be, gosh, nowadays those any books that you're reading
you were
with
say books, because aren't you reading one right now?
No, I finished.
Oh, right.
Yes. But nowadays, even if I'm reading kind of like an actiony kind of a book, they'll usually have a love story through it, and we'll have different sex scenes. That, oh my gosh, very graphic men. If you want to read them, you could totally get your libido going as well.
Yeah.
So, in fact, one of my couples actually did do that. Like, she was reading a book, and so he was trying to, be a bit more, attentive and come on the same page as her a little bit. So he,
what a choice of words.
let's cut that out. We cannot keep that at all.
We're keeping it.
There's no way.
Yes, we're keeping it. Just keep going.
It's terrible.
You can come on the same page.
Stop it. So he was reading the book, and he would be ringing her saying, "Oh, I've just gotten to this bit," and she was saying, "Oh, you wait till you get to the da-da-da and give him some." Stop it. This is not even like you. You're the prude. You're the prude.
That was just you said.
I feel like I've gone red. I'm not even a person that gets embarrassed very often. Anywho, so he had decided he was going to, see if he could create some chemistry by sharing in the books that she was reading. So, I think that 50 Shades of Grey back in the day went huge, and men started reading that as well. Yeah. So whatever the modality is to get you into that space, I think it's about creating that time for yourself. So it could be watching the movie or reading the book or giving yourself that little bit of time to think about, some sexy thoughts or some sexy memories. But it's also that transition from the day into the bedroom. So if people have gone from a massively busy day, with or without kids, you can have busy days without kids, but then all of a sudden it's at the end of the day and, we're going to bed and we're thinking we're going to have sex, we might be still thinking about the to-do list or what's happening tomorrow. We're not actually in our bodies.
Yeah.
So this is where we could do a little bit of breath work.
Yep.
We could just do a little bit of, slow breathing to just slow everything down, come back into our bodies, a little bit of humming if you wanted to. But even just that slower breathing, if you wanted to involve your partner in kind of slowing things down, you could start with touch, start with massage. If you're really adventurous, you could try breath work together. I know on our app there's some couples breath works, to create intimacy. I think they sort of make you sit, facing each other and cross-legged, and a lot of eye gazing and trying to connect. And as much as people might feel like these things are a bit woo-woo or crazy or whatever else, like if that's going to bring you into the present moment and connect with your partner, you need to do whatever you need to do.
Yeah. And I did look that up the other day because after the breathwork episode, I needed to link it. So I understand what it is now. The Othership app, we have a 30-day free trial, and you just have to use the code word Tracey and you get 30 days free. So that's the breathwork app that we've mentioned in multiple episodes.
Yeah, so you could go and try one of the intimacy exercises from there. But it's more important that you just try and focus on you, bringing you back into your body, getting out of your monkey mind, because otherwise if your partner starts touching you, you're not going to feel it.
Yeah.
And so then that's not going to feel really enjoyable. But I'm going to say for the men, because I'm going to do my own generalising sweeping, but this is really for everybody. But start with a slower touch, like even with the flirting and the, building the chemistry through the day. Often I'll joke with people when we're talking about love languages and they want touch as part of their love language, and, they'll come back and say, how did it go? And they'll go, yeah, he thinks groping my boobs in the kitchen while I'm cooking dinner, is the way to go. And that's not what's making her feel cared about. So maybe it's that hand on the leg when they're driving. Maybe it's that snuggling on the couch. So it's looking for those opportunities to create that connection that's not sexual.
Yeah.
And if a relationship has already gone past the point that all touch can feel like it's a pressure, like you're going to drag me into the bedroom as soon as I respond to this, or if I lean into this, you're going to think, great, green light. What I'll often suggest to those couples is let's put a pause on sex for a period of time, and they both know the rules in terms of, look, you can flirt, you can touch, you can, try and create connection and do anything, but do not orgasm.
Yeah.
Do not have sex, do not orgasm, because we want to build that chemistry, and we actually don't even want it to really head into that direction. We want it to be that it's just safe touch, that you could make out with tongue for 20 minutes, it wouldn't matter. Even if your partner got so hard on, it doesn't matter, we're not doing anything with it, you know? Yep. It's just about creating that chemistry.
Yeah.
So it's got to be that you're just being very intentional, trying to connect with each other. And if it has been like that in the relationship where you've not felt very safe with touch, it's making sure those boundaries are in place so you can lean back into it. You know, if your partner normally hugs you and you kind of just give him a quick hug and pull away because you're thinking he's going to get that groupie hands happening, like lean into that. You know that he can't do anything now. Like you know that rule is in place for you to enjoy that. And again, that's going to lead to more of that connection. And then your partner then also will realise how nice that touch feels, even if it doesn't result in an orgasm.
Yeah.
So I think it's about slowing everything down, being more intentional and considering it early. Because again, think about the love languages of the beginning of a relationship. You're texting all the time. You're saying beautiful things. I can't wait to see you tonight. You look so beautiful when I saw you last night. Like you're saying such lovely things. You know, you're setting up that next night.
Yeah.
Or that night. So being intentional is really, really important. Talking about sex, what you like, what you didn't like, gently, of course. Like you don't want to be saying something, I hated it when you did blah, 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 you know. But you could just gently guide them about the things you prefer or, hey, maybe next time we could try this. Yeah. Because again, even with that slowing it down, if you slow everything down to the point where someone is just so sensitive to your touch, you could be touching them on their lower back and they're arching with the energy behind that. It doesn't have to be that it's in our, you know, private areas. It's anywhere in our body can give us these beautiful reactions, and that's intimacy.
And not saying I've ever had feedback. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't.
But we talk about sex.
Yeah, and I've had feedback. I mean, give me a break. What I was going to say was, just be gentle. Like, everyone has an ego, so deliver it in a nice, gentle, respectful way, and then your partner will receive it in such way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do have to talk about these things, and I know that it can feel uncomfortable because we're being very vulnerable, and that's, you know, a good point that you made about being very gentle when we're giving that feedback. Or if someone's having the courage to ask for something that they would like, then being gentle in that response as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. And getting clear on, you know, and look, while we might have different libidos and different expectations around sex, if you can get as close to an understanding around what you both agree on with timings and things, and even when's the most likely time that you're going to be intimate, you know, like you were saying about the weekends, that might be exactly what people need to really think about. Like, where is it going to happen? Where is it likely to happen? When are we more likely to be in the mood? Don't leave it to the end of the day. Why would you leave it to the end of the day if you're exhausted?
Yeah.
You know, that's where you would curate.
Especially if you've got young kids.
Yeah. So it's creating different patterns. I've had clients tell me before they literally get home from work and go straight into the bedroom before they have dinner. Because they said as soon as they have dinner, they feel sluggish and they feel tired. But if they go and spend a couple of hours in the bedroom just chatting about their day, it usually leads to sex.
Wow.
And then they go and have dinner.
Jeez.
They don't have any kids.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But lots of people have got kids out
soon.
at home. But it's about, again, figuring out what works for you in terms of timings and frequency. They're not always going to line up, you know, with your partner's expectations, but if you can try and find some sort of middle ground that you're both being respectful of each other, if you need to put in place those boundaries around safe touch so that you get the chemistry back, you can lean into more of that affectionate type of interaction without someone shying away from it or fear of being dragged into the bedroom.
Yeah. We've ticked over an hour. Mm-hmm. It's been a bit of a whirlwind episode.
How are you feeling?
Got through it. Feel good.
It's so funny.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
No, just my top tips would be make sure you know each other's love languages, which obviously in a previous episode you might have done. I think
it's episode 4 if you want to go back and listen.
Yeah, so it's making sure you know each other's love languages, making sure you're being aware of that 5-to-1 ratio and trying to make sure that we've got that 5 nice interactions versus one of those uncomfortable ones. We are trying to add variety into our relationship, so both in the activities we're doing and making sure that we're changing our conversations. We didn't sort of mention this, but using conversation starters could be really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
We give those out.
We've talked about them before.
We have before, but we do them on the retreat. We give them to people on the retreats just because, again, when people are having those same transactional conversations and, you know, you go through the same questions. Oh, how's Sarah? How's Jane? How's blah, blah, blah? You know, when we're talking to each other, it's boring.
Yeah.
You know, so using a conversation starter can add, you know, fresh energy and take you into places that you wouldn't really have talked about before.
Yeah.
Or you assume you know everything about your partner, but we change, we evolve, we have different values and views and things over time, and we might not have thought to check those things out anymore.
Didn't you have an idea to start selling them at some point? We should do that.
Yeah.
Tracey Quayle conversation starters.
Well, they're the
Or
relationship
Reconnect,
retreats, so they have to be
Reconnect relationship. Yeah.
cards. Yeah. So it's just mixing up your conversation, mixing up your activities, being clear on when they're happening, who's organising them. You could even, this is just an added little thing, you could even have a little a consequence if your partner hasn't organised a date night for that particular time. Think of a fun, jokey kind of way of making this be important for the other person. So it's going to take a little while for it to be a routine for you when this is a new practice. So how are you going to make sure your partner remembers? Is it an alarm on their phone? Is it a note in their diary? Is it a post-it note by their bed? Like where are they going to be knowing that this is something that they're now going to add into their routine?
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, you could have a consequence. Like for me, it would be, can you play with my hair? So that could be your consequence, that you're going to have to play with my hair for 15 minutes if you forgot to book that date night in.
That's Tracey's favourite thing.
Yep. And then for you, you could have a foot rub.
A neck massage is always good.
Oh, you do like neck massages. Yeah. So it's just something that's lighthearted enough to make the person go, oh, gosh, I need to remember that for next time.
Yeah.
I can't keep letting that person down.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, this really should be one of the most important relationships in our life, if not the most important relationship in our life, I would say. And think about where your time and energy goes. You're giving it away. Yeah. You're giving it to the random people on the street, the person you work with, yes, your friends, but they're not your person.
Yeah.
So really put the energy and effort into your person and they'll stay your person.
Yeah. Great tip to finish on.
Okay.
And I have a little something for you. I don't think you've realised what number episode we're up to.
It's 20! I forgot.
I know you did.
Oh, that's my goal.
Yeah. And why is it your goal?
So when Scott first said to me about starting a podcast, I don't know where I heard it, but really early on I heard that, because you hear that nowadays, everyone started a podcast, blah, blah, blah. So I did feel a little bit like, oh, we're going to be one of the numbers. But they said lots of people start a podcast and don't get past the first 3 episodes.
Yep.
And so they said not only did most not get through the first 3 episodes, but only 1% ever make it to 20 episodes. So straight away I went, I want to be in the 1%. And so as much as, I enjoy the podcast and will continue, it was important for me to have a smaller goal rather than just being like, oh, we do podcasts now. And that just seems like infinite.
Yeah.
It was nice to have this tangible goal of I'm going to work towards those 20 episodes. So
well done. High five.
Yay! And thank you to everyone for listening and encouraging us to keep going, because that's how come we've also made it to 20 episodes.
Yeah. So we've made it this far. If you haven't, please write a review on Apple or Spotify. I think you can leave comments on Spotify. Obviously, you can like and stuff on YouTube. Do all that. And we'll make another 20. That's the deal.
Yes. And you can share this with your partner if they haven't listened to this. They might need to hear the tips.
Tell your friends. That's an easy one. Tell some people about it. Because we want to keep doing this. But we obviously want to grow the numbers. And that's if you're a fan, that's an easy way for you to help us. Good job. Perfect. If you enjoyed this episode...
Did you enjoy the episode?
Yeah, I loved it. There might still be spots, if you're lucky, there might still be 1 or 2 spots left on the Reconnect Relationship Retreat. So if this episode resonated with you, there is a relationship retreat in June that is run by Tracey and Tina. I'm not involved in that one. And you can
so I can talk about it as much as I like on the retreats.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So you can find details of that on traceyquayle.com. There's a link under the retreats menu, and then just click on the relationship one and you'll go through to that website. And can't promise that there'll still be spots when this episode airs, but...
We have more coming up this year as well.
Yeah, there's other ones. Yeah.
Yep.
So, if it resonated, do that. Okay, and if you want to join our mailing list, you can do that at traceyquayle.com. There's a little form there. You put your email address in and we'll add you and you get our fortnightly newsletter. And if you haven't already and you want to, follow Tracey on social media. It's at traceyquayle.therapy. Okay.
Yes.
Well done. We made it.
I was never nervous.
I'm going to go have a lie down.
All right. Well,
Feel free to join me.
Well, good job.
All right. Well done. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.